Okay, today we're going to be sharpening our chainsaw. I thought for those that have not sharpened a chainsaw before, or even those that have, there might be a few tips that you'll pick up. This is my Stihl Chainsaw. Highly recommend those. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it apart. I'm going to take the cover off, obviously, the chain bar, the chain, the outside cover. And we're going to clean it, sharpen the blades and put it back together again. The tools that you're going to need to achieve this, I use some rubber gloves just to make sure my hands stay clean and off the chain. Some safety glasses for when you use the air compressor, which you will need some air. And this tool here is made by Stihl, and I've found by far the easiest tool to use to sharpen any chain, but particularly the Stihl. You'll note that I've written 532 on there because that will match up with the chain, and I'll explain that a little bit more later. The final thing you're going to need is the tool that comes with the chainsaw, which is a multi-purpose spanner and so forth. So we'll get started. Safety glasses on, rubber gloves on. You don't have to wear rubber gloves, you don't have to wear safety glasses, but I recommend you do. Alrighty, so the first thing we're going to do, take off our chainsaw cover, leaving the chain. The chain brake is on at the moment, that's off, that's on. I usually leave it off, and I'll show you why in a minute. First thing we're going to do is take off these two nuts here, they're usually fairly tight. Them to the side so you don't lose them, and our cover comes off. As you can see, I've just been out in the forest doing some work and it's all dirty, and the reason we're going to keep cleaning this is to ensure proper operation of your chainsaw at all times. So I'm going to get my air compressor and I'm going to clean all this up. So I'm just going to take it out here. So that is reasonably clean. I like to get it cleaner than that. So what I do is I've just got some terps in here, just mineral terps. Just give it a couple of sprays and same thing, blow it out. Sooner or later that compressor is going to kick in, and when it does it'll be a little bit hard to hear me. So that's clean enough. Now you'll need to back off the tension of this chain. Depending on the chainsaw model, some have an adjuster here. On this model it's a screw located at the back here. So it's just a matter of turning it anti-clockwise half a dozen times. And what that does is this adjuster here moves it back, so you can just take the whole thing off, just like that. Note your chain orientation, the cutting is facing forward. We just drop that off like that. This is the chain bar. It can either be that way or it can be that way. Indeed, a lot of people say that to get even wear on your chain, each time you clean it, swap it around. That way first, that way next time. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to use air to clean all the grooves and everything off it, and then I'm going to use some terps just to make sure it's really clean. Okay, so there's our bar. It's nice and clean. Final thing we're going to do now is clean the chainsaw body itself. So I'm going to clean the front side, around the motor, underneath, sides, everywhere. Just using the air gun as before. It's about round about now the air compressor is going to kick in, so it might get a little bit noisy. And this, by the way, is why you need your safety glasses, because this stuff tends to go everywhere. So now we've cleaned all that, again just to ensure proper operation of the unit. So I'm going to put my chain back on, remembering the orientation. Just drop it on the front. And use gravity just to hold it on like that. Noting your orientation, it's always facing forward, because that's the way the chain rotates. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to, this pin that's sitting here has to go into this hole, and obviously if the bar was the other way it'd go into that hole. So you're just going to pick up that hole, and at the same time drop the chain on the back like that. So you can see that pin's coming through the hole. This is now sitting there. Now you'll note that the chain bar is fairly loose and everything. So this is where we use our screwdriver. We're going to put it in this slot at the back, just here, and we're going to slowly turn it clockwise. Now what that's going to do, if you come back around this side, Joe, is move this pin that way, which will make the bar go longer, which will tighten the chain. So you want to make sure that the chain's going to sit in that run as you tighten it. So you kind of do it slowly. You'll notice the chain is starting to take up some slack now. And keep going. Just basically till it's flush like that. Okay. Now, while that's still in this position, we put our cover back on. With the nuts that you didn't lose from before. Okay, just finger tight. Now, what we want to do, see how there's this deflection in the chain there? So we want to tighten that up until there's virtually no deflection. And just, again, screw it in a few times, and each time just check it like that. So you don't want it to be too tight or it'll make the chain work too hard. So I'm hardly lifting that. That's about where you need it to be. Okay. So now we use our tool again. gently tighten that, gently tighten that. Now what I usually do now is just make sure I've got free movement, and now we can tighten it up. Use the front one first, hold the chainsaw, push it down, back one. And the reason we do the front one first is to hold the bar in position. Okay, so that's tight, the chain can still move, so now we go through the process of sharpening the chain. Now, there's two things to remember when you're sharpening a chain. One is to have the correct angle, and the second one is the lead in front here needs to be filed down at the same time. And the reason that is as the chainsaw is going around, this, if it's the same height as the cutting, then you won't get anything out of your wood at all. It has to always be slightly lower. Now, in the older days when you used two files, a round file to sharpen this and a flat file to sharpen that, you had to have pretty good eyesight, which I don't. So this tool that Stihl brings out does exactly that. If we can just have a look at that. It's got the round file, it's got the flat file, and you'll notice that one is slightly higher than the other, and that will actually sit perfectly in this gap. I've put arrows on here so we know which way it's going to go. Now the idea is, you'll notice that you've got a straight edge here of the tool and your straight of your bar. So when you look down from the top, this has to be in line with that. So that would be wrong, that would be wrong, it needs to sit like that. So you only need, I usually go about 5 times, and what you need to make sure is that this tool is horizontally level, so in other words you're going across level that way, and that this piece is straight with there. The pressure is slight and you're pushing a little bit back and down, and the reason is because you want to get into that gap and onto that. Now what I do is I get a texter and I just colour in one of these so I know where I'm starting, move it forward and start on the one behind it. So I've got my tool, I've got the right direction, I've got my angle correct, I'm pushing back and slightly down, and I'm horizontal, and I just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's it, and then I move on to the next one. What I usually do is move this one right down to the end, so I know that's the last one that I've worked on, and then start on the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that's the last one I worked on, so I move that right to the end again. Maybe go from the front now, Joe, so you can see how this is level. That's the last one. Move it all the way up to the front again. Probably obvious, but you do one side first and the other side. Alright, so now I'm up to my little black mark, so I know that this is the last one on this side. Okay, so I flick the chain around like that, and I've still got my little black mark here. Now this tool I now just simply flip over. So now we've got the file on this side, and now I do the other ones. So exactly the same process. I find this side easier because I'm right-handed. Same thing, your pressure's going back and down. have to push too hard. The most important thing is that you're keeping that square with that, and this is up and down. Now, in case you're wondering, no, you don't go backwards and forwards, you just always go forwards. And you'll actually feel if this chain, which was fairly sharp to start with, to be honest, if it is slightly blunt, you will feel the different teeth giving different feedback. Okay, so there's my marks. I'm now finished. On the top of the chain, how far you can go, there's a little wear indicator. Might be a little bit hard to pick up on the camera, but you can keep sharpening until you get to the wear indicator. So these chains have got a fair way to go. Alright, last thing I do is put the chain back on, put the cover on, and that's it. She's ready to go. So I always recommend, as soon as you finish doing your chainsaw work, bring it up the shed, clean it all out, sharpen it just like I've done now, and put it away, because when you need chainsaws, sometimes you need them quickly, so you don't have time to sharpen them and go on. The last thing I'll mention, this tool here is a deburring tool, and I've got another bar here somewhere. And the purpose of these is about every 10th time that you sharpen your chain, you just run this gently along the edge and along the edge like that, and if there's any burrs on the edge of the cutting bar, it'll just take them off. So that's what that tool's for. And that's it.